The morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
You know, when a new day dawns, it seems that we may have a plan in our mind, but we really have no idea what's going to take place. It might be fairly routine, or it might contain something that we will always remember. Now, if horses and cattle are involved, I think that can raise the unpredictability factor quite a bit. And that's how it was for a rancher and a pretty good horse that only had one fault. But that fault could cost him his life.
Michael dismounted from Thunder and whispered in his ear, "I have to go down in that ravine, son. And one time in your life, Thunder, just one time in your life, you have to stand by me."
Our longtime friend, the ropin psychologist and finest storyteller in the West, Dr. Michael Johnson, along this week with a true story about a horse that was one of a kind. Well, climate change has been a hot topic of discussion this summer, and Baxter Black turns his fertile mind to looking at alternatives to fossil fuels.
Thinking outside the box, we could imagine regional alternative fuels. Nissan might consider developing a car that uses teriyaki sauce.
The Rangeland News gathers information from far and wide and looks at food price inflation.
Food shoppers this year are seeing some larger than normal hikes in prices for food at the grocery store.
Yeah, that seems right. A fine piece of cowboy poetry from the pen of the late Mike Bahallo, and on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, a gem of wisdom I got from a great cowboy years ago, and it helps me every day. We'll start off with a brand new song here from the master of wit and wisdom, Ben Crane. Now, Benny wrote this, and it comes with a terrific video that you can see on his YouTube channel. It's kind of like looking at a horse living in a box stall, thinking about where he'd rather be, and it's called Open Up the Gate.
Open up the gate. Shutting like a gunshot, our freedom gone in a flash. The herd is milling in a panic, open range now a thing of the past. Just yesterday we was running free, the wind blowing through our mane. We never saw the riders coming, never banked on a hurricane. There's a strong drive to thrive on our own home range, to run with the herd we were raised in. This prison just smells strange. Been bunched up here for far too long without our regular feed. Restless feet are stomping, this herd is gonna stampede. So open up the gates and let these ponies run. We're headed back to where we started from, to drink the mountain streams and breathe the mountain air. We're kicking up our heels, gonna let them fly, gonna live again beneath an open sky. It seems like only yesterday, yet it seems like it's been forever. But now it's time to turn these ponies loose. Turn them loose. These ponies run. We're headed back to where gonna let him fly. Gonna live again beneath an open sky. We wanna drink the mountain streams, we wanna breathe the mountain air. We're kicking up our heels, we're gonna let them fly. Gonna live again beneath an open sky. We gotta more than just survive, so let's grab a hold and thrive. It's time to live again beneath an open sky. Open sky.
Dr. Michael Johnson tells the story of a horse. The horse belonged to his friend, Michael Cotter, and this is how Michael Johnson picks up the story.
I always dreamed of owning a horse, and I always knew just how he would look. He'd be a big black horse that could run like the wind. He smiled and shook his head. Imagine my excitement when one day my dad came home and announced we would be traveling to the sale barn the next day to purchase my very own horse. I couldn't believe it, said Michael. We were up long before dawn that next morning, and after hitching the big draft horses to the wagon, we headed into town. I was so excited I could hardly stay in my skin, he laughed. Arriving at the sale barn, the 12-year-old jumped from the wagon and scurried up the side of the fence where the horses were corralled. His eyes peered over the last high board, fully expecting to see the black standing proud, and what he saw filled him with revulsion and a wave of nausea. The horses were hollow-eyed ghosts, with skeletal structures clearly showing through sagging skin, hanging on jagged bones. Pathetic creatures dying from starvation. The horses, so desperate for food, had eaten the tails and manes from their companions. His dad sighed and said, I didn't know, Michael. The cowboys who brought these horses in rounded up these wild mustangs in Nevada and Wyoming, and they shipped them by rail car, and the horses have had nothing to eat for days. And while I don't approve, son, this depression that we're living in causes men to do desperate things. Michael couldn't bring himself to look at the animals again. He sat in the wagon with his head down, sick at heart, waiting on his father to come so they could leave this dreadful place. And suddenly, to his dismay, he saw his dad talking to one of the cowboys who had captured the starving horses. He groaned inwardly as the cowboy stepped down from his mount and exchanged his reins for money his father was handing over. Michael's dad had bought the cowboy's horse. The mustang his dad bought didn't quite look as bad as the other nightmarish creatures, but that wasn't saying much. Michael said nothing on the long ride home. The shadow of the proud black the youngster had hoped for walked quietly behind the wagon, his head hanging low. His dad tried a couple of times to lighten the boy's spirit. You never know, son, he said. We can feed him and take care of him. Sweet feed and good care do wonders for all sorts of God's creatures. Let's give him a chance. This thing walking behind the Cotter wagon. Sure enough, on the way home, neighbors' kids pointed and laughed at the apparition following the wagon, and Michael's spirits sank even more. He'd been so excited just hours before, he'd even picked a name for the horse he thought would be coming. The name was Thunder. I'll certainly never name this ugly thing Thunder, he said to himself through gritted teeth.
We'll pick up the story and have another fitting piece of music when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Our mission is to help our clients sell their equipment in the most effective way possible. People who are looking at our auction, they are literally all over North America. Once we take somebody through a process from start to finish the first time, they get it. You know, it's very simple. It's more simple than they think.
Welcome back to The Spirit of the West. A disillusioned young farm boy from Minnesota, his dreams of a powerful black horse falling apart when his dad bought a scrawny, starving Mustang from the horse auction. Dr. Michael Johnson picks up the true story he heard from Michael Cotter.
I'll certainly never name this ugly thing Thunder, he said to himself through gritted teeth. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things that day, Michael said between sips of coffee. My dad was right. We fed the horse, and to everyone's astonishment, the horse responded much better than we expected. He filled out and the scars healed, and he grew a new coat of the blackest hair you ever saw in your life. Michael named his new friend Thunder, and Thunder became a trusted companion on the family farm and a good working cow pony. The boy and the animal grew close, as only men and horses can do after a hard day's work. Hidden inside a starving, mistreated Mustang, there was a proud black after all. Except for one small problem. Like most of us, Thunder wasn't perfect. He was certainly a good horse, but he had one flaw. Thunder would not stay ground-tied. Every working cowboy knows the value of an animal that will stand still once you get off of him. And Thunder would not do that. Maybe it was the Mustang in him, Michael said from the other side of the beautiful old weathered kitchen table. You know, they're born to run free. And maybe when we dropped the reins, he felt he could be wild again. He just wouldn't stay ground-tied. And Michael explained how this situation wasn't really all that serious because everyone knew of Thunder's tendency to hit the road if left alone. So all the hands on the farm always handed the reins to a partner when they had to dismount from Thunder. One day, years later, however, Thunder's little problem came sharply into focus and created an additional problem that would cause Michael's life to hang in the balance.
And the story continues after the good cowboy from Wyoming, Kevin Davis, helps keep the West alive.
He sits in the saddle, all weathered and lean. He's a real working cowboy, the best I've seen. His hat loose and sweat stained, pushed back on his head as a dusty reminder of the life he has led. His cheek slack and hollow, except when in use. On the frequent occasions he'll have him a chew. From dust bowls to range fires, he's about seen it all. And he mixes a quick whip with a slow Texas drawl. It seems like he came out some other time before the nuisance of fences and the railroads decline. When the Comanche ruled the plains and the buffalo thrive, now he's stubbornly keeping the old West alive. Must have been in the 70s when he hired on to foreman the West Texas ranch I call home. I watched him and Dad work and sweat side by side till the prices fell too low and the bills got too high. It seems like he came out some other time before the nuisance of fences and the railroads decline. The Comanche ruled the plains and the buffalo thrive. Now he's stubbornly keeping the old West alive. Now these days when friendship is often too much to ask, he was there for my family when my daddy passed. I may not be an expert, oh, but it seems to me he's a living example of what a cowboy should be. It seems like he came out some other time before the nuisance of fences and the railroads decline. When the Comanche ruled the plains and the buffalo thrive, now he's stubbornly keeping the old West alive. He sits in the saddle, all weathered and lean. He's a real working cowboy, the best I have seen.
Well, Thunder had turned into a sappy, reliable ranch horse, except for one small problem. He never did learn to ground tie. If you got off and dropped the reins on the ground, he was gone. And now the story continues with Dr. Michael Johnson.
One day, years later, however, Thunder's little problem came sharply into focus and created an additional problem that would cause Michael's life to hang in the balance. Now entering adulthood, Michael found himself with even more responsibility on the family farm. As a youth, he was always able to pair mamas with their respective baby calves at roundup time. Michael had a sense of cow in him, the old men said. On one particular winter day, he was worried about an older cow that he hadn't seen for several days. Knowing that she was about to calve, he decided to saddle Thunder and ride the farm to find her. As he left the barn on the Black, his concerns increased as he saw the blue clouds building in the north. Wouldn't do for a man to get caught out here in one of these Minnesota northers, he thought to himself, and he kicked the pony into a trot. He rode for hours, and he found no sign of the mama cow or her baby. And the wind was whipping now, and a few large flakes began to fall, and Michael and Thunder rode on, faster now, each step taking them farther away from the safety of the barn and home. With his hat pulled down low and collar turned to shield the icy wind, Michael fought to see through the snow coming in full force now. He decided to turn Thunder home and could hardly bring himself to do it. He knew such a decision would sentence the old cow to her death. And then he heard her bellow farther to the north. With Thunder at a dead run, he raced up a small hill, feeling good that he had found the old girl. And as he crested the rise, his hopes fell like the snow around him, and he immediately realized that everybody was in trouble here. The old mother cow had in fact had her baby, and after birth, the little one had slipped from her mama's womb down a slope into a small ravine holding icy water. The baby couldn't get up, and the mama couldn't get her out, and Michael knew that he had two serious problems. One was that he was simply not the kind of man who could let a cow and a calf die in the snow. Call him foolhardy or too soft, call him anything you want. That's just the kind of man he is. The second problem was even worse. He was riding a horse that wouldn't stay ground-tied, and there was nothing to tie him to out on this open range.
Will Michael save the newborn calf, or will they all freeze to death? And what will Thunder do? We'll find out after some information before the end of this program.
Coming up next, though, Baxter Black will share his ideas for alternative fuels. And then it's the Rangeland News when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at alternative fuels.
Out of the box for the Rewrite Side of Rodeo. 3 audio books, rodeo novels by Baxter Black. A total of 23 hours following our cowboy guys and gals on the road to the finals. Rambunctious, exciting, kind-hearted, and funny, of course. $39.90. CDs or downloads, BaxterBlack.com. 800-654-2550. On the road to the rodeo, horse show, state fair, ball game, or grandma's house, climb on up and take a ride with me.
Flying into a lot of big city airports anymore is like diving into murky water. Smog hovers like bad breath around a buzzard's smile, mostly exhaust fumes. But mankind in his ingenuity is constantly trying to clean up messes that he himself makes. And I'm sure those charged with the daunting responsibility of eliminating dirty air long for a good natural disaster now and then. They are not unlike the cowboys who went into Mexico in 1949 to help rid that country of foot and mouth disease. They were often in the position of having to kill a poor farmer's only cow. Thus it is today, when government wants to tinker with our family car. Drive less is fighting words to some. Well, an odd bedfellow army of industry, government, and activist soldiers are joined in the quest for alternative fuels to help reduce pollution. Ethanol, natural gas, propane, and electric are realistic possibilities, but one can imagine solar, nuclear, rubber band, anti-gravity, or wind-up power, and whatever happened to the sail. Thinking outside the box, we could imagine regional alternative fuels. Nissan might consider developing a car that uses teriyaki sauce. France, the wine car. Russia, the vodka-powered vehicle. And Germany, of course, would have the Mercedes Light, which runs on Heineken, not to mention the hot air Honda, which was electric. Of course, plug a TV set in the back and turn on C-SPAN. California, as always, would lead the way in both pollution and technology. Their solution, of course, would be the most expensive alternative fuel, bottled water, $1.09 a bottle. But there would be a $14 per gallon state tax, and this is based on the government principle that says just because a more fuel-efficient vehicle can be developed does not mean that the consumer should pay less. And in the end, our country will drag along and finally get something done. But we're at the stage now that air travel was in 1910. We're limited only by our imagination. A Department of Energy man told me they were now doing research on a biomass extraction. Think of it, he said, lawn clippings, corn stalks, grass, oat hay, and the emissions would be CO2 and water. My gosh, I said, you're inventing the horse.
This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
If you're buying or selling farm machinery, heavy equipment, or trucks, let Progressive Auctions take the hassle out of your sale or your search. There's an online auction every Wednesday at progressiveauctions.ca. Doesn't matter where you live, Progressive Auctions can find the machinery or equipment you need or the buyers who are looking for what you're selling. progressiveauctions.ca. For more information, call 844-309-9424. Just ahead of the Rangeland News, it's time we dug out one from my Montana friend, Ken Overcast.
He's just a working cowboy riding for a brand engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow and living in the past. Just a working cowboy riding for a brand. Well, the big boss married money. Her daddy had a mine. Bought her 80,000 acres just to help the girl unwind. And the foreman is a sheep man. He can't even coil a twine. It's a dang hard go, why I don't know, but he'll stay till shipping time. Just a working cowboy riding for a brand engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow, but living in the past. Just a working cowboy riding for a brand. Well, he's living in the bunkhouse and saving every dime. He'll have 10 cows by payday, already saved for 9. Well, dreaming dreams is easy. It's the doing takes the time. It's worth it all when come some fall. Yup, them steers are mine. Just a working cowboy riding for a brand engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow,
when living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for the brand. Well, he's gonna marry Jenny. He just asked her yesterday. They're moving down on the Muscle Shell the middle part of May. They ain't got much to go on, but they'll get along some way. If they hold on tight and do things right, they're gonna make her pay. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand, engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow when living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West, a roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
At the top of page 1, it says, our old barbecue wound up in the scrap heap after I tried fixing it. However, thanks to some good friends, now we have a shiny new one. It only took me 6 hours to put it together. But now with the price of gas, we can hardly afford to drive to town. And then looking at the retail price of steaks at the meat counter, we may only be using the new one to boil cowboy coffee. Are food prices really going up? Well, Gary Crawford may have the answer.
Food shoppers this year are seeing some larger than normal hikes in prices for food at the grocery store. This week's Consumer Price Index showing those prices last month alone rose by 0.7%.
0.7 is definitely higher than average food price inflation per month,
which USDA economist Carolyn Chelius says generally is only about 0.2% a month on average. Now, even a 0.7% hike doesn't sound like that much, but add each month increase together, it's a little different story. This year, prices at the grocery store up 0.3% in January, 0.2 each in February and March, 0.6 in April, 0.3 in May, 0.7 in June, for a grocery price hike of 2.3% so far, and we're only halfway through the year. Carolyn's current forecast for all of 2021 is for grocery store food to have increased by how much?
2.5% to 3.5%.
Prices last year during the height of COVID rose by 3.5%. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
3 Alberta farm families with Century Farm and Ranch Awards, the Herman and Barbara Praker family, the Kay Glenn Wills family, and the Stuart and Ruby Sinclair Smith family. The Praker family operates a 4,000-acre cow-calf grain and oilseed farm at Strathmore. That original quarter was bought in 1918 through a general land sale by William Herman Praker. And the Kay Glenn Wills family also awarded the 125-year Farm Recognition Certificate for having continuously owned and actively operated the same land for 125 years or more. The Wills family operates a 320-acre mixed farm at Springbank. The original quarter section there was homesteaded by George Searle Wills in 1892. And the Sinclair Smith family operates a 920-acre cattle and hay ranch in Millerville. Francis Sinclair Smith purchased the original quarter in 1908 through the Soldier Settlement Board. And a tip of the Golden Stetson to Ed and Charlotte Bothner from Beachy, Saskatchewan. They've been named Saskatchewan's Environmental Stewardship Award recipients for 2021. The couple operates a cow-calf business on land north of the former Matador Community Pasture and 6,000 acres of native grass next to the South Saskatchewan River. Beautiful country. And the national TESA winner will be named during the Canadian Cattlemen Association's semi-annual meeting later this summer. Year-to-date, cattle exports from Canada are at one of the lowest levels in 15 years, while we are importing more cattle too. The Canadian cattle exports for the first half of 2021 are down 23% compared to 2020, and that's 26% lower than the 5-year average, according to Jason Wood, the livestock market analyst with Alberta Agriculture and Forestry. Year-to-date, Canadian cattle exports in 2021 are the lowest in about 15 years.
And here is a late-breaking news bulletin. The 45th annual Ivan Danes Country Music Picnic is happening August 13th to 15th, and this is great news. Donna and Leroy Anderson, loved them on the Tommy Hunter Show for so many years, will be there. Boy, are they great. So happy to tell you that we'll be there with the Western Spirit Band and many more great entertainers, and are we ever looking forward to seeing all our friends there again. I think tickets will be available at the Black Knight Inn, and for more information, I'd say give Ivan Danes a call at 403-358-2295. There is a special yearling sale along with the regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Kamloops Yards on August the 10th. The regular sale at Williams Lake is August the 12th, and regular cattle sale in Vanderhoof on August the 13th. And take note that Vanderhoof sale starts at 9 in the morning. You can get all the details and see the sales streaming live at bclivestock.bc.ca. And got some big news from the Innisfail auction market. The Danes Ranch Pro Rodeo is happening September 2nd to the 4th. As you know, it had to be canceled last year, but this one will be just like old times. And, of course, there's regular cattle sales every Wednesday with the big No Borders Livestock Auctioneers Championship on September 3rd. And the horse sales are back, too. Get all the details at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And now, the final item.
An older rancher's son left home to work in the city. And we all know that good help's hard to find. But the rancher did find a guy who was pretty good with horses and cattle and machinery. The only problem was he always overslept, and he showed up late every morning. So the rancher talked the guy into coming to the drugstore, and he got some high-powered sleeping pills. He gave this bottle to his new hand, and he told him to take 2 of these pills after supper. He should get a good night's sleep and show up for work on time for a change in the morning. So the young fella took 2 pills, and he woke up on his own 5 minutes before the alarm, feeling great. And he bounded out of bed and got to the ranch 15 minutes early. Wow, thanks for the pills, boss, he told the rancher. They sure work. Yeah, that's great, the rancher says. Well, where the heck were you yesterday?
Yeah, maybe cut the dose down by about half. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll share a gem of wisdom I heard from a highly respected longtime working cowboy, and then more from the saga of Michael Cotter and Thunder, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Our mission is to help our clients sell their equipment in the most effective way possible. People who are looking at our auction, they are literally all over North America. Once we take somebody through a process from start to finish the first time, they get it. You know, it's very simple. It's more simple than they think.
Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. We will take you back to the story of Michael Cotter and the horse called Thunder from Dr. Michael Johnson in just a few minutes. And next, it's the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, where I'll share a gem of wisdom from a long-time working cowboy that has served me well over the years. But first, we were looking at some of the photos of our Spirit of the West Alaska cruise a few years back and thinking, yeah, after all of this time, that would be about the nicest getaway we could have. And, you know, things seem to be changing, but nobody knows for sure. But we are still tentatively scheduling our farewell Spirit of the West cruise to begin June the 15th, 2022, with a 7-day trip up the Inside Passage to Alaska and back to Vancouver. Now, these days, of course, we don't know what's over the next hill, and I don't think anybody else does either. But our longtime cruise directors, Jim and Karen, have all the information on how you can tentatively book your spot for this potential great trip. Their number is 1-800-530-0131. And there's a lot of information on our cruise pages at our website, hugh-mclennan.com.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
This summer, the great outdoors are inviting you to come out and play. So whether it's camping, boating, riding, or just relaxing around the fire pit, suit up for fun with Irvine Tack and Western Wear. Jackets, jeans, and every kind of boot under the sun, from casual to rugged to riding. There's t-shirts, ball caps, hoodies, and I'll tell you what, why not take a peek right now at irvins.ca or stop in today.
Canada's largest Western store.
The fine cowboy and horseman Terry Milligan said it first, to me anyhow. A lot of pretty good hands are quick to let a horse know when he's done something wrong, but a lot of them don't do something just as important, or maybe more important. They don't let him know when he's done something right. Now, how do you let a horse know when he's done something right? Well, it depends on the situation and what he's done. If you're doing groundwork and he gets it right, often the reward is the release. If you're riding through a little creek and he finally calmly walks through, I like to reward him at the right time with the appropriate reward. And the right time to reward him isn't exactly when he does the maneuver, it's after he's processed it, and that can take a couple of seconds. How do you know when he's processed it? Well, the first thing I watch for are his eyes. Wait until he blinks. And then his ears. Wait till they cycle back and forth. And finally, his lips. Yes, wait for that lick and chew. And then reward him with a gentle rub, not a pat. That vigorous pat with the flat of your palm is really confusing and annoying to a lot of horses. And if you watch Jonathan Field's Liberty DVD series, you'll see exactly how to do that in a way that really communicates praise to the horse, and he'll start to work for that form of praise. Now, I found that this works well in a branding pen, whether it's a seasoned old ranch horse that's taken thousands of calves to the fire, or a green colt at his first branding, when we get the calf to the ground crew and turn and face up. Before I turn around and head back for another calf, I'll just let the horse stand there for a few seconds, wait for those signs, and then give him that rub on the neck. And eventually he connects getting the calf to the fire with a little bit of comfort and that reward.
And for Irvine Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. You know, something that keeps old Cody going and keeps Lucky looking so good at the age of, we think, around 36 is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Senior Ration. And you can find out what's in all of Hoffman's horse ration products at hoffmanshorseproducts.com. And I know if we ever ran out of Hoffman's horse ration and I had to tell Cody that, she'd probably say this. Not much can raise your stress level more than a tractor breakdown when you need it most. We've all spent hours on the phone and driving around trying to find the right parts, and that's no fun when you're missing something you need to finish the job. Here's a better way. Just go to bctractorparts.com. That's where you can find about any part for any make of tractor. If you're restoring a vintage tractor or just keeping up the maintenance on the ones you're using, you can have the parts you need in a short time. And you know what? There's some great pictures of tractor restoration projects and much more right there at bctractorparts.com. What? Oh, you don't have internet? Well, try calling Mark at 250-395-0960. Oh, I know you're anxiously waiting for the next chapter in the story from Michael Cotter and the horse Thunder, and I promise we'll get to it right after a fellow who is the real deal, and I sure have enjoyed sitting down and picking and singing a few cowboy songs with him. From Lacombe, Alberta, he's a great songwriter too. This is Fred Doberstein.
A horseman came from the timberland, riding the Lord knows only where. A yellow slicker and a bedroll tied behind the saddle, old cowboy hat and a dusty colored hair. He'd been working at a cow ranch north of the river, back in the Clearwater Hills. fed hungry steers all winter just for tobacco money. A bunkhouse wood stove kept away the chill. Now he's riding the grub line, looking for a place with open range. Too many barbed wire fences in this part of the country. A drifting cowboy hoping things will change. He's drifting like a snowflake on the wind, riding down a lost and lonely road. Born to be a cowboy, too late for those old trails. But this is the only life he knows. He'll be sitting by a campfire when the night shadows fall. Feel the warmth of the burning spruce and pine. And he'll dream a cowboy dream until the sunrise of the morning, of cowboys living in another time. At daylight he'll saddle up and vanish, riding to a range that's wild and free. A horse and the last drifting cowboy, following their dreams into the day, riding the trail of cowboy lonesome. I hope he finds a cowboy place to be.
Now it's back to the story. Michael Cotter had finally located the newborn calf in a blizzard at the bottom of a deep ravine. And the horse he was riding was as good as they come except for one small detail. And Dr. Michael Johnson now picks up the story.
The second problem was even worse. He was riding a horse that wouldn't stay ground-tied, and there was nothing to tie him to out on this open range. Michael knew what he had to do. Some would laugh and call him a fool. I am not one of those. Michael dismounted from Thunder and whispered in his ear, "I have to go down in that ravine, son. And one time in your life, Thunder, just one time in your life, you have to stand by me. Don't run. Stand by me." And with that, a young farm boy turned his back on a Mustang, born to run, and walked down into an icy arroyo to save a life while risking his own. At the bottom of the depression, icy water filling his boots, Michael cradled the baby and began his ascent up the steep hill. He peered through the snow, and Thunder was gone.
But wait, it's not over. The final chapter, When the Spirit of the West, continues right after this.
Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. The conclusion of the story of a horse called Thunder is coming up when Michael Cotter, cradling the cold, wet newborn calf in his arms, finally scrambled up the bank in a blizzard, and Thunder was gone. What happened next, right after a classic Song of the West written by Joe Babcock, done by a guy who brings the music of the West to the British Isles, and he's got a cowboy heart. This is Clint Bradley and his band.
I'm kin to the roving wind that brings the northern along that dusty trail. I take my stand. The steers are big and bold, and the nights are often cold. But I'll get by as long
is never through. When I get done at night, all the stars are big and bright. But then it's kind of what you used to when you throw that rope around that calf, dream of a girl in a photograph. I got no home, I got no wife, I'll be a doggone cowboy all of my life. Dry wind may blow, and you'll see me in the rain and snow. We're just an old campfire to keep me warm. I'll move the herd along, and I'll greet them with song. So I guess that I was born to throw that rope around that calf, dream of a girl in a photograph. I got no home, I got no wife, I'll be a doggone cowboy all of my life. Oh, I'll be a doggone cowboy all of my life. Oh, I'll be a doggone cowboy all of my life. Yeah!
Well, there is still to come a song from Wiley Gustafson and Wiley in the Wild West that'll reach deeply into the heart of anybody who appreciates doing a good day's work on a good horse. And cowboy poet Mike Pahallo has a fitting piece of cowboy poetry to wrap it all up. But it could be that you're wondering about Michael Cotter and Thunder. Well, he'd found the newborn calf, and he knew his horse Thunder had never ever stood ground-tied with the reins dropped on the ground. He'd always hit the trail for home. The blizzard was raging, but he had no choice. There was nothing to tie to, so he dropped the reins on the ground and told Thunder if he ever waited for him in his life, this was the time. And Dr. Michael Johnson picks up the story now, as Michael Cotter struggled up the bank with the newborn calf.
He peered through the snow, and Thunder was gone. His hopes fell again as he desperately weighed his non-existent options. The wind stopped for just a moment. Flakes ceased their swirling, and there stood old Thunder, nervously pawing the ground. Not too happy about the whole thing, but at least he was still standing. One time in his life, old Thunder stayed ground-tied. He stood by his friend in his time of need. Michael cautiously approached the pony and gently grasped the rein, the lifeline that would take them all to the warmth and safety of the barn, 1,000 acres away. The baby lost her ears due to frostbite, but grew to be a fine cow on the farm. The mama lived for several years and had more babies, and Michael, although bitterly cold, was fine, because old Thunder brought them all home. Why did he stand there that one time? Was it because he remembered a family that had been kind to him? Did an angel wrangler whisper in his ear, "Stand by your friend this one time"? I don't know. I like to think it was both. All I know is I'm glad that horse stayed by him. That black Mustang saved the life of one of the finest men I've ever known. Like Michael's dad said, a little sweet feed and good care can do wonders for all sorts of God's creatures. Thank you, Thunder.
There's nothing like a good one between your knees, light to the rein and willing to please. Together as one, the day will be done. On a good one, I'll find my way home. The world looks better from up on the throne, strapped to the top side of muscle and bone. Below me friend on whom I depend. On a good one, I'll find my way home. Where luck is fickle and the days are long, danger is quick and the cattle are strong. But buried in movement, purpose and song, on a good one I'll find my way home. Circle round. When at last the angels call out my name and the trail is ended on this earthly plane, just send me away on a big honest bay. On a good one I'll find my way home. On a good one I'll find my way home.
Isn't that a great song? That's Wiley Gustafson, Wiley in the Wild West. Now in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, here's another Michael. This is Mike Pahalo.
Babies. The bay mare dropped her foal last week, a sorrel filly with a tiny star, all legs and curiosity, like most baby horses are. I think I was born to be a horseback. Working cows are just for pleasure. Horses are the central feature of my labor and my leisure. And when I become too old to ride, all I wish for my last day is a shady spot by the pasture to watch the foals at play.
Mike Pahalo, founding member of the BC Cowboy Heritage Society, one of the founding members of the Kamloops Cowboy Festival, and he left us way before his time, and we still miss him every day. And that sweet harmonica and guitar in the background was played by the guy that chews our horses, Matt Johnston. And thank you so much for riding along. I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And special thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan, still helping us out and getting it done in spite of the wildfires, the evacuation orders, and all the other challenges that come with that. And if you enjoy this, I know you'll love Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine, and you can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Hope you have a chance to check out our YouTube channel, and this show, along with most of our past ones, are right there with video, along with quite a few videos that we take while we're out doing ranch work around our part of the country. The link's at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.